Well, we've been looking, of course, at the currency movements that have come with that decision. The markets are reacting positively over Tito Mboweni's appointment as finance minister. The rand has firmed up against the dollar. For reaction, I'm joined by Sam Rowland, an economist at Econometrics. When we called you for this interview, Sam, the rand was weakening at the time when you were coming here to discuss a weakening rand. And now that we've had this decision and some certainty from the president around who the finance minister is in Tito Mboweni, we're seeing a strengthening of the rand. But can we see a consistency in this happening?
I think, firstly, under the previous administration, the changing into different finance ministers was so chaotic that, it's almost refreshing to see a sort of smooth transition to Tito Mboweni. As to the movements of the rand, we also need to look at it in terms of the context of what the emerging markets are going through globally. We've seen in Turkey and Argentina, there's been a lot of emerging market volatility that's meant that the currencies have been weaker. And this is coupled with the US Federal Reserve raising rates, and the European Central Bank has also talked about raising and tightening monetary policy going forward. Now, when this happens, we typically see developed market currency strengthen and currencies like the rand weaken. So in terms of market movers and currency movers, I don't think that our decision and the controversy around Mr. Nene was always going to move the needle a lot. I mean, we knew under President Ramaphosa that we were going to see some sort of continuity. We know that President Ramaphosa has dedicated himself to maintaining a budget that is going to be balanced or at least consistent with what we're going to see under Mr. Nene. So we're not going to see we're never going to see a huge change. So I think, a lot of it has to do with what the emerging markets are going through globally, but I think the reception of Mr. Mboweni as new finance minister has been well received to a degree.
International Monetary Fund saying today it's still concerned about South Africa's reform plan and actually acting that out and making sure it's done. They have a new man at the helm, not so new if you like, but he has obviously toed the line here and make sure and ease the market in saying that we are going to keep to reform plans that are already in place. Do you see him moving things around there, or do you expect him to keep the in-tray as it was?
I think we're not going to see substantial changes. Mr. Mboweni is a veteran of the Reserve Bank and the financial cluster in the government. He's been through the Reserve Bank. He would have had a good relationship with Lesetja Kganyago. He would have had a good relationship with a lot of those who have been at Treasury for a long time, who now occupy senior positions. And of course, it was mentioned earlier, the medium-term budget gets finalized months ago. This gets discussed long before, we arrive in October. So we're not going to see huge changes, if, anything significant. So under him, I think he understands what needs to be done. He knows that the rating agencies are going to be coming and making a rating review after the MTBPS is announced. He knows what needs to be done to stave off any sort of downgrade. And it is going to mean very few changes to the MTBPS, if any, and continuing on with the sort of proposals and the sort of reforms that President Ramaphosa has started to enact.
Is this the man that will make sure that the economy grows, something South Africa has been battling with for quite some time now? He was, especially back when he was with Trevor Manuel as a Reserve Bank governor during the boom years for South Africa, we saw the economy strengthening then. Does he have the plan in mind to turn things around? Because it's okay to have him being a credible figure and a figure that everyone knows, but can he bring the change that we expect?
I think he can go some way towards improving on our growth prospects. Remember, these are very structural problems that we have. We have a deep crisis in education. We have a big problem in that with a weakening rand, we're seeing interest rates potentially being raised sooner than expected or more rapidly than we had expected before. So those sort of problems are there, and the finance minister can really only do so much within the framework of government spending. We've seen a fiscal stimulus package being announced by President Ramaphosa. Ultimately, he needs to stay the course of maintaining that we don't go over we don't increase our budget deficit too rapidly, because this is obviously will increase our debt costs and potentially put our credit rating at risk. So I think he will, certainly enact sort of, or at least toe the line in that regard. How much he can do towards strengthening the economic growth, it also depends on many other things. We need to see government policy certainty being achieved. Remember, under Pravin Gordhan, under Minister Nene, also very competent, and finance ministers within a similar vein. We didn't necessarily see policy certainty that we would have liked to see. We need to see that now. And I think Tito Mboweni will be a good way to strengthen that argument. But for us to keep growing, to improve upon growing, and for him to have the most effective impact, we need to see policy certainty. And this needs to be decided at a political level, ultimately.
Yeah. Definitely one of the toughest jobs in the land right now, Kathy, and it's back to you.